today we are looking at recycling the water and having the maximum recovery so that you reduce the cost of operations, right? So if you look at the reverse osmosis plant, which we'll talk later, we have a critical factor called the recovery. So if somebody is offering 75% recovery, somebody is offering 85% recovery, it means your process cost per meter cube of water will be lower if you operate at higher recovery. So that's why it is important we give a solution for any problem using an integrated approach. You use a CapEx and OpEx approach and then provide to the customer to win or for him to look at it. So what is the reason for a total water management? We all know today, as I mentioned at the beginning, the water is getting critical and critical. So we want to recycle the water, obviously to meet the discharge standards. Then we are having today, most of the industries look at paper industry. They have certain, criteria or KPIs. In a paper plant is put up, you should have only 10 meter cube per ton of paper being produced as the makeup water. So if they're trying to use 20 meter cube or 30 meter cube, they're going to be in a problem. Even when they go to the pollution control board, now there are certain norms. So they have to go in and recycle. So obviously the discharge costs are higher. Than some places the discharge costs are higher, especially if you'll find that in some places we have to take the water right to the sea, right? And then we have other reasons, as I mentioned above, the providing environmental sound water, basically the reuse. So basically, we are looking at reducing the fresh water because of the high cost of water. You know very well in the metro water cost. Of course, we people are paying very less, water tax, but actual cost is being borne by the industries. Today, earlier, when we were there operating 5 years ago, it was 20 rupees a cubic meter. Now it's going to even 200 rupees a cubic meter. So every drop of water you save is going to affect the P&L or the operations of your plant. Okay. So the objectives is, and as I told you, the wastewater, as you all know, when we look at the wastewater, even at your house, is very bad, right? So if you have to have the right technology to reuse the water, okay, you need to have the right technology to reuse the water. And what we mean by a very simple diagram like this is, as I already mentioned to you, we have the raw water treatment, then we have the water going into the stream process. Pardon? Hello? Somebody asked anything or okay? So raw water treatment, as I told you, we take the raw water, pass it through a process, which could be an ion exchange or a membrane, any process, and the water goes to the wastewater treatment, and then you're recycling it back. And this is called the integrated or the total water management program or the zero liquid discharge program. So basically, if you look at how does it happen, you have what is known as I told you, we have what is known as the pre-treatment, which is nothing but clarification, filtration, microfiltration, and then we have the post-treatment, which is the reverse osmosis or the demineralization. I don't want to go into the fundamentals of water chemistry, but I think it is important for all of you to understand there are two key parameters of water treatment, water. So anybody can tell the formula for water, please? It's a very simple question, but can anybody think of how to put across a formula for water? What is the formula of water? I'm not able to see the chat. Okay, so one sec. What is the formula of water, please?
So it is H2O, sir?
Yeah, H2O, of course. H2O is not the answer. So that's why I told you it's not a straight answer. So anybody else can think of the water formula for water?
OH.
Excellent, boss. Yeah, excellent. So basically, the purpose of water treatment is when we look at the demineralization plant, we are looking at removing all the cations and anions, which I'll discuss later. So that's why we always, as a chemical engineer, or when we want to design the plant, we look at water as not as H2O, but H plus OH minus, which we'll discuss later. So coming back to the physical properties of water, so as you know, the water has got many physical properties like the suspended solids. Basically we have the water which could have high turbidity, right? If it is basically from a river, it could have organics present in the water because when it is passing through it's picking up a lot of organics and bacteria. And then, of course, what we do is basically we pass this suspended solids. So suspended solids is ppm, parts per million. But we have a methodology to just check the turbidity of the water, which is in NTU, right? So depending upon the type of water, we may have high levels of TSS. If you take from the river, you may have high levels of TSS. So we need to necessarily go in for a clarifier. A clarifier, we have got different types of clarifiers today. Basically, a clarifier is basically a retention tank, which could have about 180 minutes of retention. But today we have technologies where we call it as a reactivator clarifier, which will have a flash mixing zone, a flocculation zone, and settling zone in one chamber and can operate even at 90 minutes retention, which means that you reduce the size of the clarifier. Simple, again, we are going into the simple mass balance, wherein you are looking at the reduction of from 180 minutes to 90 minutes. You can reduce the diameter of or the retention time of the clarifier, which means you need a lower surface area in the clarifier, which means you reduce the size of the clarifier. So the clarifier is basically a mechanism wherein we have a combination of the chemistry as well as the equipment. As you can see, it's a mechanical equipment wherein we have a Reka mechanism at the bottom to take away remove the sludge which is formed at the bottom. But the most important thing is we need to add the chemicals, which is basically a coagulant to coagulate all the particulate matter, and subsequently all the coagulated particles have to be flocculated so that it settles down faster. So we have a combination of the coagulant and a flocculant, and by using this combination, we ensure that the particulate matter is just like a crystallizer, is basically coagulated and then flocculated and settles down. So the parameter which we have at the outlet of the clarifier, we get it less than 25 ppm. And then obviously this 25 ppm is not sufficient, good enough to go down to the downstream. So you need to pass it through a multimedia filter, which is a combination of anthracite and sand and pebbles. And then we bring it down to the suspended solids less than 2 ppm. Okay. So basically, we have different filtration systems. The earlier days, we just had the multimedia filter, but now today we have micron filter, ultra filter, nano filter, and RO. And this filtration is basically to take care of the suspended solids. Today, we must have heard that we have ultrafiltration, which is basically, again, is basically for suspended matter, nanofiltration, and then the reverse osmosis, which is for dissolved solids. So no one is perfect, not even the membranes, because the membranes are tougher to handle, which we'll discuss in the pre-treatment. So one most important thing is in the water treatment, it is very important that we take care of the pre-treatment, as I told you. So we have what is known as the suspended solids as well as the organics, and sometimes we even have iron. So depending upon the raw water source. So if you look at a comprehensive pre-treatment program, we have to go back to your old chemistry. On the olden age, if you go to some old wastewater treatment plant, you'll find what is known as a cascade aerator. So you'll find that the water, which is iron, ferrous iron, even in our house, if you have a lot of iron in your water, in your borewell, all you have to do is to take it to the top, take it to the water tank, have a small pipe, which is perforated pipe, and then allow it to flow the water out. So the ferrous ion reacts with the oxygen and becomes ferric and settles down. Okay, so we take care of the iron, and I told you we'll take care of the suspended soils. And in case there are organics present in the water, what we do is we do a chlorination and to kill the organics present in the water. And since again these organics or the excess chlorine is bound to affect the membranes of the downstream, we pass it through an activated carbon filter to remove all the excess oxygen. So to conclude, the pre-treatment program will be basically aeration to remove the iron, a clarifier and a filter to remove the suspended matter, a chlorination and activated carbon filter to remove the organics present in the water and the excess chlorine. So this water, which before it goes to the downstream, we have now ensured that it is free of all the physical properties of water, right? And then we enter into the chemical properties of water. So this just an idea about the membranes, RO and UF membranes. I think as I told you, UF is basically, don't get confused, it's only for removing the TOC and also for the suspended matter. So if you look at, I mean, this is how the reverse osmosis looks like. You can see right to left, you can see that the reverse osmosis is basically, to the tune of 0.001. So it's so tight, well, membrane. So the sand filtration, microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, and reverse osmosis. So normally, today in the water treatment field, we are looking at sand filtration, followed by ultrafiltration, followed by reverse osmosis. So in the earlier days, we used to have the technology of ion exchange present. Okay, so before we go into the ion exchange part, as I told you, the most important thing is we understood the chemical properties of water. We now need to understand the physical properties of water. We now need to understand the chemical properties of water. So I think the chemical properties of water, you're all aware, I think, but I still quickly run into it. The key parameter we have is pH. I think you're all aware that if you have, pH is neutral 7 and vice versa, greater than 7 is alkaline and less than 7 is acidic. It's not that significant, but the most important thing is we have the range of cations, and the cations are nothing but calcium, magnesium, and sodium. Okay, and the total hardness in the water is called calcium and magnesium. And then we have the anions present in the water, which are nothing but chlorides, sulfates, and silica, and then the carbonates. Okay. So basically, our objective is when we have all these chemical properties, obviously, all these chemicals, the minerals present in the water, when we add all this individual mineral as such, like calcium as calcium, magnesium as magnesium, and then we add them ppm as such, then we get a parameter called as total dissolved solids, which is called the TDS. So this is a very important chemical parameter in any water. So the water which we drink, the mineral water, will have about 100 ppm of TDS. The sea water as high as 34,000 ppm TDS. And if you take the metro water, we'll have 400 ppm TDS. Or if you go to Ramanathapuram district, you'll have about 10,000 ppm TDS. Okay. So today, as I mentioned to you, the technology is to reduce the TDS from, as high as seawater of 34,000 ppm down to as low as 100 ppm, which is the drinking water. Okay. And when you look at the discharge standards in India, the discharge standard is 2,100 ppm. It should be the discharge standard when you want to discharge it into the river or to the sea. To the sea, of course, we have much higher, to the river. Okay. So if you look at, again, water chemistry, I want to ask somebody a question. Maybe not Dr. Ram Prasad, maybe he knows water quite well. but maybe rest of the people can answer. I'm not sure if any of you have seen how a water analysis looks like. So if you look at the water analysis, you'll find that, when you go and send your water or your office, your lab water or something for analysis, you get a report from SGS. You'll find that the water is mentioned as ppm as CaCO3. Some are expressed as ppm as calcium, some as ppm as magnesium, and so on and so forth. Okay. So can anybody think of why it is mentioned as calcium CaCO3? Why not magnesium carbonate? Why not sodium carbonate? Or why not sodium hydroxide? If you look at any water parameter, you'll find it is mentioned as calcium as CaCO3, or total hardness is mentioned ppm as CaCO3. Okay, this will, of course, as I told you, this is something which I also
because the molecular mass of calcium carbonate is 100 exactly. Sir.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great.
But
So basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So I think you may know who spoke, sir. I mean, yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, we also, as when we were kids, we used to ask the same question. Maybe the water expert he decided to use the formula of CaCO3 because the molecular weight of CaCO3 is 100 and easy to do the conversion. Okay. So when we talk about total hardness, I don't know actually if I have time, but I wanted to do a quick test. If online quiz, I mean, I would do an online quiz, but I'm not sure about if it's possible. How many participants are there? Yeah. We have how many participants? Quite a huge, right?
51 as of
Okay.
now.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I go forward, I'll be doing quick quizzes also. And just to check, for example, I mean, it's again, I mean, for you, it may be simple, most of your faculty, but I mean, you may have to use your calculator and you may have to use your periodic table if you have not been in water treatment for a long time. So, for example, if calcium is 40 ppm as calcium and magnesium is 40 ppm as calcium carbonate, what is the total hardness in the water? Can anybody do a quick answer? If the calcium in the water is 40 ppm as calcium, right, and the magnesium is 40 ppm as calcium carbonate, what is total hardness present in the water? We have a chat box, huh?
Yeah, it's there.
Not able to see the chat box. Okay. Wong, you have joined?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. Because I can't see. Yeah, so, when you're presenting, you can't see, right? So I don't know whether we have a technology to see. Okay. Anyone could come out with it's a quick answer, right? Again, a very simple question. As we go forward, it will be more complicated questions, but I mean, depending on the time as it permits. So anyone could get the answer? I repeat the question, but I don't know whether I can. Where's the chat here? I'm scared to touch this, something will happen then.
Sada, use your phone and chat.
Lada, I'm having the phone, but I'm seeing where is the chat. 1 sec.
That bar will be there. No?
The 3 dot தானே?
3 dot இல்ல. அந்த ஹேண்டுக்கு பக்கத்துல ஒரு 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 பார் ஒரு round with the 2 lines inside. Got it?
Can only see raise my hand. Well, mobile தெரியல.
Okay.
That's okay, I think. Okay, I think it's pretty easy question. வந்துருச்சு. Let's join. So the question I asked was 40 ppm as calcium, 40 ppm as magnesium as CaCO3. 3. What is total hardness? Correct? Yeah. The answers are confused. I'm also have to think the right answer here. So Ramya is getting 2263 and Ram Prasad 264, pretty close, but both answers are wrong. Okay. 80. Good. So 265. Okay, I'll tell you 263, 264 things are wrong. So you don't have to put the same number around that. Okay, we'll go back to the periodic table. Yeah. What is the molecular weight of calcium? Oh my God. I'm getting super answers. Yeah. I mean, out of box answers, but these are all, sorry, I'm very sorry to say, even I'm learning today, but these are not answers. Okay, I think we'll have to go back to the fundas because as I told you, the most important thing in water treatment, I spend a lot of time and energy to learn the fundamentals or teach the fundamentals to my team before they can actually go into the downstream or the upstream, whatever we call it. So, I mean, we ask chemical engineers, we think, oh, chemistry, it's so simple, nothing great about it. But, frankly speaking, I mean, from Aztec, I still remember Dr. Srinivasan who taught us, organic chemistry. But, I mean, so this is a very simple calculations. When we go through the exercise, if I give you a bigger and tougher exercise, it'll take hours for us to complete the course. But I would request you to just think once again, what is total hardness? Total hardness is the addition of calcium and magnesium. Okay. So Santosh put 80 ppm. Okay. So if it is 80 ppm, I wouldn't be wasting my time because 40 plus 40, even, somebody, even a student could, I mean, or a kid could add 40 plus 40 is 80. No, the answer is tricky, right? So because the reason why somebody expressed it as calcium carbonate is the total hardness in the water. You cannot add calcium as calcium and plus magnesium as magnesium and get the total hardness as ppm as COCO3. So it is important to have both the parameters being converted as calcium carbonate and then added. Okay. So the answer, Dr. Ramprasad, is 40 ppm as calcium. To convert it to calcium carbonate is 40 into 100 by 40, which is equal to 100. Okay, so calcium is 100 ppm as COCO3. Magnesium, I've already given the data as COCO3. That is a tricky question, right? So it's only 40. You don't have to again use your periodic table because I know the magnesium, nobody will remember the periodic table of magnesium. I mean, the molecular weight of magnesium. So the answer is 100. 40 into 100 by 40 is equal to 100 as CaCO3 for calcium Magnesium is already expressed as 40 ppm as COCO3. The answer is 140 ppm. Okay, so I hope I would ask Juriba to clarify how you got 2.497, 4.118. I mean, what are the numbers are mind-boggling. How did you get those numbers? Can you clarify?
So I was just taking the concentration as 100 and I divided by 40, and I was taking the calcium of the iron 2+. That's why I got 2 point.
Okay. So that's, you've gone very deep. So it's very, very simple. The equivalent weight of calcium is 20, right? So when we are, it's 2, right? So the valency of calcium is 2. So since calcium carbonate is also 2, so we are going back to fundamental chemistry of 8th standard or 10th standard. The calcium carbonate, the molecular weight is 100. The molecular weight of calcium is 40. So into 100 by 40 is 100. And since magnesium is already mentioned as magnesium, so you don't have to touch on the molecular weight. Okay. So this is a very, very simple formula which took us 10 minutes. So when we go into depth, what we do is we have in the water treatment, again going back to the chemistry part, we have the cations followed by the anion. Okay. So how do we, as a chemistry guy, I mean, before we go to the chemical part, is we have to match or the balance the cations and the anions present in the water. So we always ensure that, for example, the calcium plus magnesium plus sodium is equal to the chlorides plus sulfates plus alkalinity, or the MCO calcium carbon or the carbonates. Okay. And then if the water has got what we call it as the soft water, like, you must have seen in Chennai, we have hard water. So some guys come and try to sell you, I have a softener. So the softener basically removes, it has got a resin which is in the form of RNA plus. Okay, it's a polystyrene resin. And the RNA, the Na plus ion, which is attached to the resin or the R, exchanges with the calcium and magnesium in the water, which passes through the softener and becomes RNA. And that's how we call it as the soft water. And then when we look at the post-treatment, we want to bring before that I go to the fundamentals again. We have what is called as the total dissolved solids in the water, right? The total dissolved solids in the water is basically done in a lab, maybe using our, boiling in a flask and checking the residuals. That is a very hard-earned procedure. We can also do it by a theoretical method. So if the analysis are provided, we have to add the calcium as calcium, magnesium as magnesium, sodium as sodium, and add all the minerals present in the water. And then you had that, you call it as the total dissolved solids present in the water, which is called the TDS present in the water. So I just explained to you, just to recap, can anyone tell me what is the TDS in the Red Sea? I'm sure all of you have not gone to Red Sea. I've also not gone to Red Sea. I've gone up to Cairo. But can anyone think what will be the TDS of the water in the Red Sea? Or before that, I will ask a simple question. What is the TDS of the Marina Beach water, which I spoke a few minutes ago? Yeah. Anybody else?
The Marina, it is 30 to 35 ppt.
Yeah. PPT is nothing but 35,000 ppm, right? Yeah.
Yeah, same thing, sir.
Okay. So anybody else want to think about what is the TDS in Red Sea?
For Dead Sea or Red Sea, sir? Dead Sea is almost.
No. I'm talking about Red Sea.
Yeah. Understood. Red Sea. There is one more thing called Dead Sea. I thought it is 40, more than 40, sir.
Yeah. I mean, Dead Sea and Red Sea, I don't know where it is, but
yeah.
I call it. Yeah. Okay. So basically, yes, I think Mr. Ram Prasad, So you're teaching water treatment, you know, what are you teaching?
Yes,
in
sir.
waste-
I'm a wastewater specialist in wastewater, sir. Water and wastewater.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
from Shastra.
Shastra University. Yes, sir.
Oh, great. So I think you can continue the course then. Good.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah, nice, nice.
Industrial
Actually,
experience
I
is-
wanted to be more interactive because, you know, because I don't know as I told you, I mean, my experience says that, I mean, in 4 years in AC Tech, we never learned in water anything. Of course, we learned the fundamentals, but since we worked in the industries today and we went gone through several training programs, we are able to talk today with confidence. But even today, I would say every day is a learning experience because the water we handle, like today I'm looking at a water in Jakarta, or I'm looking at the water in Singapore, looking at the water in Malaysia, or looking at our water in Mumbai. The Mumbai water is having a TDS of just 100 ppm, right? Those guys are lucky just because they have so much of rainwater. But in Chennai, we have that's the reason why we are more, I would say, as water guys, I'm lucky that I am in Chennai because I learned the technology of reverse osmosis plant way back in 1988. We had the first RO plant in Chennai in, Lucas TVS and Chennai bottling plant way back in 1988. And we are lucky that we had the first recycle plant of MFL and MRL. Of course, I was associated as a chemical supplier, but not as an equipment supplier. Of course, I worked in ion exchange too, where as an equipment supplier for the DM plant. So that's good. So I think the most important thing is one more thing is like guys like us, when we go to the plant, go to the raw water treatment plant, or we go to the industry, okay, and somebody tells we just collect the water sample. Okay, this is a water sample, for example, my drinking water sample. Okay, so can anyone tell what is the TDS of this water I'm drinking? So can anybody think about the water I'm drinking? So obviously, I can't send this water to a chemist in the lab and ask him to do the complete analysis to check the TDS and all that, right? So what we do is we have a simple, I mean, everybody knows that the water conducts, right? So we use a simple conductivity meter and check the conductivity of this water. And the conductivity of water is measured as micromoles per centimeter, okay? And you multiply by 0.6, you get the TDS of the water. So that's why you'll find when you try to install an AquaGuard in your house, you'll find that guy coming with a small TDS meter or a conductivity meter. Okay, so just dip it in the water and then multiply by 0.6, you'll know the TDS in the water. Okay, so I mean, so I will give questions later. So basically, in the case of now that we have understood that the water has got the physical properties, the chemical properties, as I told you, the key parameter we're looking at is the TDS, which is 35,000 ppm in the case of seawater, down to low as 100 ppm in the mineral water is about 50 ppm, right? So when we want to pass it through to the boiler, this water in the industry will either go to the cooling tower as a makeup, or it has to go to the boiler as a makeup. And for the boiler, we need to have water which is absolutely free of all minerals. And that is called the demineralization plant. So in a demineralization plant, we have a cation exchanger which will remove all the cations present in the water. And then we have an anion exchanger which removes all the anion present in the water. And then, as I told you, okay, coming back to the formula, why I talk about HOH is in the cation resin, we have a resin which is called RH plus. Okay, and the RH plus resin will exchange all the calcium, magnesium, and sodium, and the water which comes out will be H plus, and then it goes to the anion resin where we have a resin called ROH minus. It will exchange all the chloride, sulfate, and this H plus out the outlet of cation resin and OH minus from that anion resin will join together and form what is known as the H2O. So the earlier days, we used to have only the ion exchange technology, which is a very capital intensive technology. And then people decided to go in for reverse osmosis. And this is our simple demineralization. Look at, so the reason the outlet of the quality, we need to have excellent quality before it enters into the boiler, which is high pressure boiler. And you'll find that the conductivity will be less than 0.1 microsiemens, sodium will be less than 0.01, and the reactive silica will be 0.02. Now, talking about silica, can anyone tell me what are the two types of silica available in the water? Can anybody talk about what are the two types of what are the two types of silica in the water? In a water, because which will affect the performance of the boiler. I hope whatever I'm talking is not a sixer yet. We are just in the starting phase, and then we'll be taking off in a tangential phase more. So I'm trying to go slow, but as we go, as the time limit. So anybody can talk
Calcium
about what are the
silicate.
two types of silica present in the water, please. Hello?
Calcium silicate and magnesium silicate. Hello.
I didn't get you. What is that?
Calcium silicate and magnesium silicate.
No, it's not that. I'm talking about the two types of silica, because we just talked about crystalline and non-crystalline. But in the water chemistry, we have a different thing. We call it as the colloidal silica and the reactive silica. Okay. So basically, if you look at the water, sometimes what we do is the reactive silica is the one which will be removed in the anion exchange column. Okay. So people will test the water and we'll find that the reactive silica is 0.02. So when we take this water into the boiler, and after some time we find that there is a silica fouling in the boiler when we go for an inspection, and then we find that there is colloidal silica present in the water. So the colloidal silica is basically coming from the river water. So most of it is taken care in the what do you call the pre-treatment, but still we have to take care of the colloidal silica, which is the tricky part as far as the water chemistry is concerned. So the earlier days we used to have just ion exchange plants, but then subsequently people decided that we had the technology of the reverse osmosis plant. Although it was capital intensive, we found that it used to give a break even at about 200 to 300 ppm TDS. Okay, so this is where I talked about the capex and the opex, wherein you have a payback period. So for example, I have a DM plant of capacity 10 meter cube per hour requirement. The cost of the plant is only 10 lakhs. The 10 meter cube per hour of RO plant will cost about 40 lakhs. Okay, but the operating cost of the DM plant will be say 25 rupees per cubic meter, and the operating cost of the RO plant is 8 rupees per cubic meter. And then we work out the payback, and we'll find that the payback is even less than 2.5 years. Okay. So that is where I told you that we look at the capex and the opex as far as the calculations are concerned. Okay. This is all of you. I just quickly go into the RO plant, which is a very important system for recycling the plant. So this is a very simplified RO process. As you know, as I've already discussed with you, you're already an expert how to do the pre-treatment, because it is very important that the pre-treatment or the water before it enters into a reverse osmosis plant is free of all the physical properties of water. Okay, as I told you, because before it enters into the RO plant, you should ensure that you have the suspended solids are nil. You should ensure there is no organics present, and you should not have any residual chlorine present. Okay, so this is a simple scheme of a reverse osmosis plant where we take the raw water or the wastewater and pass it through a clarifier, pass it through a multimedia filter, pass it through a cartridge filter, and then pass it through the reverse osmosis plant. And then the reverse osmosis plant, as you can see, we have two products coming out. One is the product and one is called the reject. Okay. So in order to ensure that the RO plant is not fouling, we have a methodology to check, which is called as the SDI, which is called the silt density index. So we have to maintain less than 5 before it enters into the RO plant. Otherwise, the RO plant will get plugged. So I don't have to go through osmosis and reverse osmosis. I think all of you know about how it works when you have a semi-permeable membrane in between. And then the reverse osmosis till it reaches an osmotic pressure. And then obviously we are applying reverse pressure on the concentrated solution so that you push out the pure water out of the membrane, and then you keep the highly concentrated water back. And that is called the reverse osmosis. So as you can see, we have to apply a pressure to pass it through the membrane. And where do you get the pressure from? We get the pressure from a high pressure pump, which means you need to have a high pressure, high operating cost as far as pump is concerned. So this is, I think all of you know about how you apply the pressure higher than the osmotic pressure. And this is just an idea of how a membrane looks like. Okay, so I think most of you would have seen it in our lab or in the college. I think AZTech has got a membrane lab. We used to have Dr. Mohan, expert. So we have, probably if you get time, you can just see it's nothing but a simple, polyamide sheet which is wound over each other. And you can see the key parameters. We have the central tube where the permeate comes out. And then we have the feed water, we have the spacers, we have the collection tube, and then we call it as the constant permeate. We call it as a concentrate or the reject, and then out of the system. So basically, if you look at a simple scheme like this, we have the feed water, which is entering into the RO plant, and then we have the reject, which is the concentrate, or we call it as the reject, and then we call as the membrane, or the permeate. So what we are interested is to get good quality of permeate from the reverse osmosis plant. And obviously the concentrate will be sent back to the effluent treatment plant. So we have certain terminology called the rejection of the membrane or the salt passage of the membrane. For example, today we are coming out with a 98% rejection, which means for example, we put 100 ppm of solids through that membrane, you will get 2 ppm out of the permeate. 98% will be rejected. So obviously, when we want to design an RO plant, okay, I want to give you a thumb rule that, for example, we have to design the number of membranes, right? The customer comes to me and tells me, I want a 25 meter cube per hour RO plant, okay? So will you design the plant from back to front or front to back? Can anybody tell me? When the customer comes or somebody wants a plant, I want a plant of reverse osmosis plant of 25 cubic meter per hour. As a chemical engineer, will you design the plant from back to front or front to back? As a chemical engineer, the customer has come to you and told you, I want 25 cubic meter of RO plant. So can anybody tell? Is it back to front? Yeah. So Dr. Ram Prasad has told back to front. So anybody wants to say front to back? Okay, so maybe I'm too fast. I think since Ram Prasad is in wastewater, is able to answer. But the objective of giving this talk is I want the people who are not been in water or wastewater also to, to learn something what I'm talking and also interact, so that I know that what I've been talking is not going above, So Dr. Ram Prasad, I would request you to, back off, and we'll wait for other guys to reply. Not other guys, other teachers to please also, or faculties to also reply, if you don't mind. Yeah. Because I think you are an expert. So the purpose of this, I always look forward to the feedback based on the answers I get. So otherwise, my talk is a waste, in my opinion. So I think I request you to be quite interactive, and please, I know as faculty, I mean, I'm also still a student, as I told you. Like we tell everybody is everybody. I mean, don't feel shy that, could be wrong, because as I told you, even for me with 30 years experience, I'm still in the learning mode. So, but please make an attempt to give an answer that motivates me, this thing. So basically, I was asking you a question. If the customer comes back, I think somebody, can you mute, please? Somebody, hello? Hello, can you mute, please? Hello? Yeah, so basically, if you look at it, when the customer or some.
Sir, you are muted, sir. Sir, Sadananda sir, you are muted, sir.
இது யார் பண்ணி இது சார் கன்செஷன் கேட்டு சொல்றேன். ப்ரொஃபஸர் இதுதான் மிஸ் பண்ணிடுவேன். மட்டும் கன்செஷன், ஆமா அதான் மட்டும்தான். வேலைங்க சார், அந்த சிஸ்டத்துல தான் இருக்காரு.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I don't know. Somebody was talking in between. I don't know where I didn't get muted.
Sudha, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but okay.
We can hear you also. But it's
Yeah, I think somebody was coming in between. Yeah. Okay.
okay.
But now it's clear, right? Can you?
Yeah, you can mute one of your
Yeah.
arm.
Now it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I don't know. I think somebody muted everybody, and I got muted, I think. Somebody was talking in between. Okay. So coming back to, I'll make it fast because I think we're running out of time, because I can talk for hours and hours, as Lima knows me. So basically, I asked a question as to, will you design the plant as a chemical engineer? So this again is a process design, okay? So we have to, somebody has told you 50 cubic meter per hour per day, so 50 meter cube per hour. So Ram Prasad, the first question I will ask is, of course, you want the water to be treated, or you want the final water quantity, okay? So if the customer says, I want 50 cubic meter per hour as product, then obviously we have to start our process design from back to front, okay? So you take that 50 meter cube per hour as a product, check what is the recovery, then you arrive at say 75%, that 50 will become say 50%, for example, 100 meter cube per hour, and then go back and design the cartridge filter. In the cartridge filter, there'll be some losses, then come back and design the clarifier, then there'll be 5% loss, and then you come back here and you design the clarifier about 120 cubic meter per hour. So by looking at 120 cubic meter per hour, if you look at the velocity of 2.4 meter per hour, you arrive at the surface area of the clarifier, arrive at the diameter of the clarifier. Similarly, we go to the multimedia filter, we design at 25 meter per hour, we arrive at the design of the filter. Then we run a software program to run the reverse osmosis plant and then find out the number of membranes required. Now, a thumb rule is for a layman, one membrane can handle 0.8 cubic meter per hour. So if I need to treat 25 cubic meter per hour or 20 cubic meter per hour, or an easier one is 80 cubic meter per hour, I would need about 100 membranes. Okay. So each membrane will treat about 0.8 cubic meter per hour. But obviously you can't have membranes hanging in the air, right? So many membranes. So we decide to put all the membranes, about 4 or 5 membranes in a pressure tube, which you can see. So this is called a pressure tube, wherein you put 4 membranes in one pressure tube so that you compact the operations, instead of, obviously you can't keep the membranes hanging in the air. So this is called a pressure tube, which could be 4 elements long. So we call this as one element. And normally the size of the membrane is 8040, means 8-inch dia, 40-inch long, or it could be 4-inch dia or 20-inch long. Okay. So it could be a 4 element or a 6 element. And the percentage recovery is nothing but the permeate flow divided by the feed flow into 100. Okay. So the recovery which we can get from a brackish water, I forgot to tell the word brackish water earlier. Can anybody tell what is the TDS of a brackish water? Except Dr. Ramprasad. What is the TDS of a brackish water? Okay, TDS of a brackish water is around 10,000 ppm. Okay, so the recovery of a seawater water plant, you can get as high as maximum 34% recovery. But if you look at metro water or any other water, we can go up to as high as 85% recovery. So we have different type of systems of RO water, right? So we have the single stage RO. As you can see, basically we have the feed water going through the high pressure pump, which will be taken to the drain, and then you get the permeate. Okay, it's a very simple thing wherein you have one drain and one parallel, right? So this is called a single stage RO system. So basically we take the water, pass it through an RO membrane, and the water which you get is called the permeate, and this is called the recovery. So here in the case of a 2-stage RO system, what we do here again, we are looking at process calculation, what you study in the 4th semester, but not so sophisticated, but simple process cal, but still I can catch somebody with a mistake. Okay, I'll ask a question now. So you'll see that the feed is 100 GPM, sorry, it is in GPM, US style, 1000 ppm is the TDS, and it goes into the first what do you call as the first RO plant, right? And then you get the permeate, which is 50 GPM and 100 ppm. And then what you do is we don't send the reject to the effluent, but instead pass it through a second stage concentrate, take it to another RO plant, and then give it to pass it, and you get a permeate of 25 GPM, and then you blend those two permeates and you get the 75 GPM, and you get TDS of 130 ppm, and you get a concentrate of 3920 ppm. So this is a simple flow sheet wherein, can anyone say what was the recovery in the first stage, what is the recovery in the second stage, and what is the recovery in the third stage? I want in quick answer, please. Not from Dr. Ramprasad. So I'll just, it's just 5 minutes because I'll be running out of time. So if anybody can tell me, looking at this flow sheet, what is the recovery in the first stage? What is the recovery in the second stage? And what is the recovery in the overall stage? At least I need one answer to know if my talk is useful or not. I mean, if you can't type it, you can unmute and talk. Please, I think maybe that will be faster. You can unmute and talk. And again, I'm requesting you all to make an attempt. Please don't feel, I mean, I'm sure Dr. Lima is not keeping track of all the AC Tech teachers, professors who are talking also, or the vice versa, the other faculties. So please make an attempt. It's a very simple question. You can see the flow sheet. What is the recovery in the first stage? And what is the recovery in the second stage? And what is the recovery in the overall stage? Lima, my question is clear or not clear? I mean,
It's clear, Siddha.
yeah, so Dr. Ramprasad, I mean, please don't answer. Let's wait for somebody else to answer. Okay, I'm repeating the question very, very slowly. You can see that this water goes to the first stage, and then there is a permeate coming, and then there is a reject coming. The reject is going to the reject of the first stage is going to an RO plant and gives some permeate, and then that reject is concentrated, gets out into the wastewater. And I'm asking a question, what is the recovery of the first stage? What is the recovery of the second stage? And what is the overall recovery? At least one answer, you can make an attempt, or you can unmute and say. You don't need a calculator at all. Clue. First question is first stage, second stage, and third stage. One answer is already on the slide.
Actually, first stage answer is given by you, that is 75%, or it is total recovery 75%.
Correct, sir. I'm talking, the question is first stage, how much, second stage, how much, overall stage, how much? 3 questions, yeah.
Yes, sir. GPM strength for, sir, please.
Oh, gallons per minute, sorry, gallons per minute.
Okay.
Sorry. It is gallons per minute. So it's nothing but maybe that's a question, because we work in the US company. Sometimes these guys given GPM still. So yeah, it's a liter. You can assume it as a meter cube per hour or liter per minute. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So second term is clear because it is in ppm part per million or milligram per liter. That is okay.
Yeah.
Both
Correct.
are equal.
So, but I'm talking about recovery. You know, I have not gone to the tougher question, which is salt rejection. So it's a very simple question I asked you. What is the recovery in the first stage? So I just gave you back the formula here. The percentage
50%.
recovery is permeate flow divided by feed flow into 100. Okay. The permeate flow divided by feed flow into 100 is nothing but 50 divided by 100 is 50%. Okay.
Yes.
So if I had run the RO plant with just first stage, I would have got 50% recovery. Okay. But what I did was I took the reject of the RO plant and took it to another RO plant, which is again 25 by 50, which is 50%. By combining the permeate or blending the permeate of 2, I got an overall permeate of 75%, 75 GPM divided by the overall 100. You consider this as a black box. It's 75 by 100. That's why we get a 75% recovery. So this is where we look at as a process, as a chemical engineer, as a process design guy, we are looking at recovering even within the RO plant to see how we can improve the recovery rate of the RO plant. Because as you know, if you are higher the recovery, better would be the ROI better would be the performance, right? So this is called a double pass RO unit. And here it is again a simple thing wherein the customer wants good quality of water, much better quality of water. So here again, you see here 1000 ppm is the TDS of the water, right?
Yes, sir.
I got 100 ppm of TDS in the permeate. So what is the salt rejection? Any idea? Can anybody say? So I told you earlier, salt rejection of a membrane is, I put, if it is 98% salt rejection, you will get 2 ppm in the permeate, okay? So here, if you can see, the permeate is 100 ppm, the feed is 1000. So what is the salt rejection? Simple, 100 by
90%.
1000, it is 90%, right?
Yes.
So by combining by 90 by 90, you got the overall 87. It's again a simple, chemical process cal, okay? So this is a double pass RO wherein what we want is the customer wants a very good quality of water. So what I do is I take the permeate, which is having 100 ppm of TDS, pass it through one more membrane, RO membrane, and then I get about 2 ppm of TDS in the permeate, okay? So this is the exact scheme what we use for desalination plant. In the case of desalination plant, you see this is a scheme where we take 35,000 ppm, pass it to the first stage where we get less than 500 ppm of permeate, and that permeate is further taken to a brackish water RO. So this is called a seawater RO, and this is called a brackish water RO. So the seawater RO has to handle 35,000 ppm TDS, so obviously it will have higher pressure rating of the membranes, whereas this will have a lower pressure rating, and this is called a brackish water RO. So this is a simple scheme wherein you will find that we use a combination of seawater followed by a brackish water and get ultimately the quality as required by the customer. So when we go to a customer, when we want to do a total water management, what we do is we go obviously and collect this complete P&ID diagram, okay? So we need to go and identify the complete source of water, where all water is going, which are the places where water is being lost, and then which are places water can be recovered, okay? So this is a simple scheme which I just picked up, wherein, if you look at a simple filter, for example, when we backwash the filter, it's just turbidity, right? So we can recycle that water at the source. So here is the thing where I told you we have the RO1, we have the RO2, and then it gets into a brine concentrator, and we get a zero liquid discharge. So this, as you see, this is just a simple diagram. So people think it is simple, but somebody has to really put his heart and mind into it to calculate. So what we have, so we are experts in this particular field called the cooling tower treatment, okay? So here, as you see in the cooling water treatment, we had a lot of chemicals because we have 3 major constraints in cooling water treatment before it goes to the heat exchanger. One is called the corrosion, one is called the deposition, one is called the microbiological control, okay? So we have what is called in a cooling water, we call as the cycle of concentration, in the sense that the water continuous evaporation taking place, and the water is getting concentrated, and certain time we'll find that the solids present in the cooling water is very high, and then we have to limit the solids in the water. So that is called the cycles of concentration. The cycles of concentration is nothing but the TDS in the cooling water divided by TDS in the makeup water. Normally the cycles are in the range of 4 to 6 COC. So our objective is to increase the cycles of concentration, thereby you reduce the makeup. So this is one methodology we employ in total water management. So this is just an idea of how a reverse osmosis plants looks like. You can see this is where I told you the chemical engineer comes in. We feed in the complete, after we do the process design, we arrive at the motor KW, give the KW and give it to the electrical engineer who designs the motor control center. And similarly, we work with the instrumentation guy. So normally for the RO plant, as you know, it's a high pressure pump. We all learned about cavitation in the first year. we need to have a low pressure switch. If there is no water flowing, the pump should trip immediately. Similarly, there is a high pressure switch of the pump. These are the two major switches because it should not damage the membrane. Then we have controls on the pH, we have controls on the conductivity, we have a lot of interlocks, and all these interlocks are all, whenever the pressure is high, then automatically the reject valve will open and, so that it drains and does not pass the pressure, because we have come across many membranes getting damaged due to, maloperations. So this is a simple RO plant, which is, this is the membranes, as you can see, the pressure tubes. And today, because of the seawater, as I told you, for the seawater, the normal water we use is about 5 to 6 kg per pressure. But for seawater, we use as high as 60 to 40 kg, 40 to 60 kg pressure. So when we are passing this 40 kg pressure, after passing through the membrane, will come out as a reject and go into the drain. So somebody thought, why we waste that energy? So we take that reject and go and drive an energy turbine driving system. So you pass the feed water to this energy driving device and pass the reject with that high pressure, and thereby reduce the power consumption to the RO plant, because the major consumer for the RO plant is the power. So these are all technologies which have come up, and now I ask Mr. Wong, who's an expert in wastewater, to quickly run through 5 minutes, and then we wind up in another 5 minutes. Yeah. So Wong, over to you, Wong.
Yep. Hello. Hi, everyone. This is just a moment. Yeah. Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. This is Wong, colleague of Sada. So going through this wastewater treatment process, there are a few processes. So we can do the pre-treatment. All right. We do the pre-treatment first to remove the solids or waste oil. Then next, primary treatment would take care of sludge or mainly the solids. Then we have this secondary biological treatment. So this would handle the organics, the COD, BODs. And then there's a polishing process on the end, the tertiary treatment. So in this process, there is sludge generated from the biological treatment, also primary treatment. And this sludge would require also to be dewatered before disposed for landfill or incineration or different processes. So yeah, basically these are the steps. Yeah, and the common processes for the common parameters for these processes is listed here. So mainly the suspended solid, oil and gas, and on the primary treatment to reduce. And then on the biological treatment, the reduction of COD, BOD. Yep. So for tertiary treatment, if there is a need to actually recycle or reuse, yeah. So this is where the polishing will be done. All right, and to meet the standards also for discharge. Right? So we can go to the next slide. So this is more pictorial, yeah, and yeah. So the same thing: pre-treatment, primary treatment, secondary biological treatment. So you see the RAS and WAS. So the waste activated sludge will be wasted, and in the process, a percentage of the activated sludge will go back to the biological treatment. So as the RAS, right? So the remaining will be wasted. So there's the WS. So we always say that in this water treatment process, we start with a water treatment problem. We end up with solid management problem. So to also solve, so sludge also we have to dewater, remove water from the sludge before it is disposed. So in the sludge dewatering, it could either be from the primary treatment, sludge, or the secondary treatment, sludge. So there are different dewatering devices depending on the needs. So on the left, you would see that this device is a centrifuge, high-speed kind of rotation. So this is able to handle a good amount of sludge coming in, depending on the need and the flow of the system. Right. So on the right is more like the belt press. Yeah. So this is catered for different processes. So quite a few dewatering processes that can be chosen. There's also another manual or more manual intensive kind of dewatering is the filter press. So it is done batch by batch, where a manual operator will have to be there. Yeah, correct. So after this process, it goes through the tertiary treatment. So different processes, like Sada has explained earlier.
Yeah, actually, so coming back to the question, I was talking earlier as a chemical engineer what you design. So when you want to design a wastewater treatment plant, obviously it will be front to back. Only when you're designing a water treatment plant for the raw water treatment plant, then we design back to front. But when we want to design a wastewater treatment plant or a recycle plant, we are trying to recover the water, right? So we have to know how much wastewater is generated from the industry, and then from there we work back to front to back. So here again, I think as Wong mentioned, we have the aeration system. I think all of you would have gone through Dr. Kurian's lecture or other lectures, which is MLSS you have to maintain depending upon the type of wastewater we treat. So to conclude, so carry on, Wong. Yeah.
Okay. So the
purpose of
the purpose of this total water management is actually to reduce, recycle, and reuse. We call it the 3R. So reduce the usage of water, all right, in the different processes in the plant. So a lot of water draining kind of applications for air conditioning, using for process in boiler as well, cooling water, and also the filtration. Yeah, and finally, before discharge, it goes to the wastewater treatment system. So the start is always to reduce the usage. Yep.
Yeah. So I think I request all faculty members also to visit some plants like this. So this is a very good picturization of the water treatment plant, wherein you can see the feed water is now, you can see the clarifier, which I talked about, the tank, what you talk about, then you have the sludge dewatering. So liquid discharge, wastewater, the cooling towers, then the boiler where chemicals are added, then the process water application. Also, because sometimes we have in a refinery, we have also water which is going into we have what is called as the demulsifier being used in the chemical to demulsify the water before it enters into the crude, enters into the process. And similarly, if you look at the CDU column or the VDU column, you will find that we have also corrosion taking place. So we have corrosion inhibitors for that too. So that's again a different subject altogether. And similarly, air conditioning, refrigeration is also, we have what I told you is a closed loop system. Sometimes we may have methyl ethyl alcohol as the refrigerant. So depending upon what we have, we need to have a chemical to prevent the corrosion in the system. Yeah, next slide. Yeah.
So
same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so same systems, but the idea about this reuse is to actually be able to reuse within the same system itself. Just like just some examples will be the boiler water treatment, where the condensate is actually returned to be reused. And then apart from water savings, there's also energy savings when the condensate returns at a high temperature. Then cooling water also, we can actually increase the cycle of concentration So less blow down of the cooling water. So it's actually, yeah, it is less water is used within the individual systems itself. So yeah, the last slide I think is on the recycling. So on the polishing and purifying the water to a certain water quality required, where you can actually use it back into the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thanks all for your finishing touch. I think we have run out of time. So I think with this, I think we have come to the end of our session. I'm sorry, it's been a pretty long session, and probably for a change, you guys are sitting on the other side of the table like a student. So I hope we were able to do justice in this last couple of hours. So if you have any Q&A, it's open to all now. So actually, frankly speaking, I was expecting a lot of questions and a lot of answers, but obviously, probably, I don't know. I'm also doing. Anyway, I'm very happy to inform you that thanks to the Zoom meeting, today I'm sitting in Jakarta. Wong is sitting in Singapore, and we were able to do this course, do this lecture for you people sitting all over India. So thank you very much again, Dr. Lima, for giving us this opportunity. So any questions you have, or I mean, frankly speaking, any feedback you have rather than the questions, because from everybody, if you can, or somebody could give a feedback, would be nice, so that we can improve further, because we are more used to giving presentations to our customers. So and this is the first time we are trying to do to a faculty. So please give us your feedback. Yeah, thanks. So any questions? Any Dr. Ram Prasad? Any questions you have, since you are a wastewater expert? Of course, we still, as I told you, we're still in learning mode. Okay.
I think they are muted.
Yeah, you can unmute everybody. Yeah, now.
No, they're all unmuted only. I didn't mute. Only the time, somebody was talking.
Yeah, that time you muted me also, I think.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ram Prasad, can you unmute and ask any questions, so that at least I think you were the most active participant. So next time I come from Jakarta, so I'll give you a present.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was nice presentation, sir.
Because
Shastra,
of course, we have Dr. Muthu Kumar from Shastra.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It was nice presentation, sir. No, it was okay, sir. We can learn a lot of new things from you, sir. And a lot of...
Yeah, actually, because of the time constraints, I didn't want to go very deep, because obviously, as I told you, I know in water treatment is hardly taught in the college. So when we also go deep dive, go into chemistry, like a simple now molecular weight, I mean, it's suddenly you'll be caught on the wrong foot. So even when because we guys go through training programs, right, for many, many years, so we go through a lot of tests and all that. So in fact, when although I was the regional manager of Ion Exchange with 8 years experience, I joined this US company, and we had an American boss in Bangalore, and he sent me 10 big files on water treatment, starting from raw water, cooling water, boiler water, wastewater. And I had tests for each and every open book test, but all the questions were so tricky, and we had to send the answers to him, and he used to correct each and every question paper. We had 10 question papers, despite 10 years of experience. And then the first time I did not do that. Then you got, I was supposed to go to the US, and since I did not complete the question, he did not send me to the US. So finally I had to do the question paper and then go to the US. So we go through such type of training programs, and that's how we keep ourselves updated, and we have the newer technologies every day. It's a learning experience. So I would request some other person also, some other professors also, to give your feedback, please, if you don't mind. Apart from Lima and the final conclusion, of course. I think you're not unmuted, or?
No, all are unmute. They can unmute themselves. They're not muted.
Okay,
but
I think maybe
I'm getting a feedback from them after every talk. So
It's okay. I think it's
I'll
okay.
consolidate that and I'll maybe send
you
it.
don't want to interact. It's okay. No problem. So I think with this, I think we'll wind up, Dr. Lima. So it's okay.
Yeah. So I think I should thank you. Okay.
Yes, of course.
I've heard you talking a lot, but now I think you talked a lot of sense. So it made a lot of
A lot of sense in water, yeah.
yeah. So
But I'm surprised. Frankly, the type of response I've got. My talk was not good enough. I feel. Yeah.
no.
Anyway, carry on. Yeah, carry on. Yeah.
No, if you were actually teaching, no. This is the
Yeah.
same reaction I would get from my students. So I'm not surprised. So you shouldn't be either. Okay.
But you're not students, yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Anyway, jokes. Yeah, carry on.
it just seeps down, I guess. So anyway, it was very interesting. Thanks for, I know it's the middle of the day or late in the afternoon for you, and thanks for spending so much of time. And thanks to Mr. Wong also for having joined you and given a very good bit for the wastewater treatment. But essentially, I thank you for having accepted and given a very interesting thought. I thought it will be more commercial, but you made it more chemistry and chemical engineering oriented. So thanks. But the group is actually a mixture of all engineers. It's not only chemical. So you have biotechnologists, you have mechanical, you have civil, all people who are working, who'd like to work on wastewater.
Yeah,
So those are the people who are attending. So thank you once again. And
and then I'm sorry that I spoke too much on chemical engineering, but of course we work with all the allied fields of civil, mechanical, electrical.
yeah,
Because as you know, when we want to design a water treatment plant or want to put up a project, the first thing I learned was to go to a civil engineer. The guy told me to go and check what is the soil bearing capacity. So we also learned, although we don't have no civil, so since when we put up a project, and similarly as a mechanical, as I told you, each and every design, we work with the mechanical engineer. So ultimately, we only give them the diameter and this thing as a chemical engineer, but of course the complete mechanical design of the filters, everything internals are done by the mechanical. And of course, I already explained to you about the electrical and instrumentation team. Yeah. So it's of course waste. As far as the wastewater treatment is concerned, we have most of the jobs are civil in nature. So that's why we find civil engineers in the wastewater treatment plant. But operations wise, yes, it still continues to be a chemical engineer running the wastewater plant. Yeah.
so thank you, Sadanand. If there are anybody who would like to, yeah, Vadivel Raja, you can give your comments.
Madam, good morning, madam.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I am Reza speaking here from Tate district. I am computer BE mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, industrial waste material. Hello.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
சார் இப்போ சர்வீஸ் செக்டர்ல ஏற்பட்ட பிளாஸ்டிக் வேஸ்ட் ஆகுதுங்க சார். அது எப்படி சார் நம்ம ஃபயல் ஃப்ரீயா கொண்டு வர முடியுமா? அதாவது ஆப்ஷன் இருக்குங்களா சார்?
இல்ல யூ டாக்கிங் எந்த வேஸ்ட் சொல்றீங்க? அசாடஸ் வேஸ்டா?
ஆமா சார். நம்ம இண்டஸ்ட்ரி வேஸ்ட் இருக்கு பாத்தீங்களா, பிளாஸ்டிக்ஸ் ஏற்பட்ட மெட்டீரியல் இல்லைங்களா சார்?
இல்ல. See, basically, as you know, there is a separate. There are two types of wastewater management. Here we are talking about liquid wastewater management. What you are talking about is solid wastewater management. Okay. So the solid wastewater management is a separate topic as such, wherein today we have to go in. In fact, for example, in Ford, we have people from other cities also, right, Lima? Or
yeah.
So I think better communicate in English. So basically, we are talking about wastewater management. Here we are talking about wastewater, where we will not get plastics and all. Those are all. What you are talking is the solid waste management. So that is a different subject as such, wherein you have hazardous waste management. In fact, when we generated the
Vadivel Raja, next talk is on plastic treatment. Okay.
So that'd
Okay,
be a
brother.
different topic.
I've tried to put all the three: gas. We had talks yesterday on carbon dioxide capture and so on. Then today was water.
In fact, I would I recollect in Ford when I commissioned the plant, when we got the salt from the multiple effect evaporator, we had to find a place in Arakonam to dispose that salt. We worked with Ford because there's a separate team which handles the wastewater, solid wastewater management. We cannot bury the solid waste into the soil. So they had to take it to a place in Arakonam or someplace far away and then do it. So that's a separate subject altogether, which I am not expert at. I'm only a liquid guy, so I'm not a solid guy.
Sadanand, I'm sorry to interrupt you now and all the other participants. The next speaker is come online, so I think we will wind up. You will also like to have a tea break. So thank you once again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Wong. Thanks, Wong, for joining in at short notice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now we'll get ready for the next speaker. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.